Well done, gang. We just captured the murderer. So, now, let's see who it is. Fred. I think I'm supposed to be the one who unmasks the villain. Yeah, but I thought, no, it's my show. Now, let's see who this murderer actually is. Mandy Kaling? No way, guys! Do you see it? Do you see it? The killer is a woman. It's a woman of color. Can you believe it? It's a woman of color. And this entire season we were just bashing white men, so of course you'd think that this killer would be a white man. But it isn't. Can you believe this? This is an incredible show. So, can we go home now? Velma, a character from a pretty well-known franchise, Scooby-Doo. But lately this name was mostly associated not as with the character, but with the show, which is about Velma, or rather, how would I say it? A more unique version of her?
Sure. Normally, origin stories are about tall, handsome guys struggling with the burden of being handed even more power. God's not real if you two morons are running this investigation. I'm a suspect? I thought lesbians were good at solving crimes. It's like the one positive stereotype perpetuated by cop shows. Here, get your drugs here. Narc. Narc. White girl with too much money. White girl with too much money.
So let's get to it. We all know what Velma is, and a lot of us have our opinions about this show. So I'd like to start this video with admitting something. I actually kinda like Velma. Please stop booing. I'm not saying it's a good show. I'm not saying it's enjoyable. I just say that I kinda liked watching it. Yes, characters are terrible, plot is nonsensical, but I can't lie, I did watch it in kind of an excitement to see what's going to happen next. Also, because I'm saying that I like the show, it doesn't mean that the show is good. Imagine it as this. For example, you like watching a pile of garbage. A lot of people think it's not really entertaining, or think you are just weird, but yes, you are weird, but you like doing it. Though just because you like doing it, it doesn't change the fact that you're looking at the garbage. So something similar is happening here. So I wanted to make this video to kind of talk about this show, because it is a little bit important to me in a way. So I decided why not. Now, let's begin. What is Velma? If you somehow still don't know, Velma is a show about Velma. And also it's kind of another iteration of our favorite Scooby-Doo game. But there are a lot more different this time around. Their personalities, their attitudes, everything is different. This show is a prequel to the Scooby-Doo. How this gang meet. And one of the most infamous names behind this show is Mindy Kaling. You might know her from the series Office, so when people heard about the show and saw the first clips, they were, how would I say it, a little bit scared of what might come. Obviously there were a lot of people who were like, oh no, Black Velma, I won't watch this show. And then it came out, and then the rest is history. First season was released on HBO Max, and it was not great. Almost everyone immediately started hating the show, for obvious reasons. It had bad humor.
White people, Daphne. Just being a white guy with a clipboard doesn't cut it anymore. Fred's a rich white guy with a tiny dong. Which white actors are descended from slave owners? Why wouldn't he? If I were a rich white dude, I'd kill everybody just to get away with it. That's some white people shit.
Bad characters.
Yeah, I know I've been MIA, but look. Ow! What the hell, Fred?
Go to Fogfest with me, please.
Stop throwing money at my face. You're supposed to scare me, not hurt me. No, Daphne, Fred's really asking me, and I'm supposed to be scared. He's back into basic hot girls who work out and wear non-candy jewelry.
Oh, if only that were true, my buttery little beach ball, but I am asking Daphne.
Huh?
I have to be Fog King.
Excuse me? Wait, you said Fog King, not Fog. In that case, I will happily go with you, Fred.
Yes! But Daphne!
And overall it was not the best experience. But because of hate watching, this show managed to somehow get the achievement of being the highest watched animated show on this platform in its opening day. So it was kind of obvious what's going to happen now. They're going to force the show down our throats. But hey, now that you know all this history, let's get to actual plot. I won't be following the exact beats of plot in every episode because, let's be honest, who wants to see a Velma timeline? So let's get to it. First we get introduced to our gang, and the first member is Daphne, who is in this version a popular girl. And after one unnecessary shower scene, we now meet our protagonist, Velma, which immediately reveals the beef between two characters. And now that we know all this information, we get to the actual murder part. One of the popular girls was murdered and had her brains removed. Velma is brought to the police department because, well, she attacked an innocent student without any reason. After explanation about how Velma and Daphne drifted apart, Velma leaves the police department and we get introduced to Fred, who is a bit less intelligent in this version. Actually, we also get introduced to the concept of hallucinations in this universe, which are obviously really scary, but in these shows you can easily get rid of them, either by kissing someone with a panic attack or letting them eat something. Turns out that Velma's hallucinations started when her mother left her family, and she is essentially the only character that believes that she was kidnapped. Velma is one thing, but her father is a whole different breed. Literally 2 weeks after his wife disappeared, he started dating another girl. Her name is Sophie, and she works at a diner. Funnily enough, she's one of more tame characters in this show, and actually she suggests Velma to go work at her diner in order to get some cash and become more social, which she firstly denies, but then she changes her mind. At the diner, the funeral is held for the girl that was murdered, and Daphne accuses Velma of doing it. Not wanting to deal with this, she leaves the diner and meets Fred outside, who reveals his insecurities. And almost immediately after that, we finally meet our last protagonist, Norville. After a talk between these two, Velma suspects Fred of doing the murder and actually tries to break into his house. Fred gets arrested, and that's technically the end of the first episode. So let's skip everything after that and get to the end immediately. But I will summarize it. Velma and Daphne starting to get closer, and from being enemies, they become friends, and later a couple. Norville is mostly trying to win Velma's heart unsuccessfully, and Fred is, well, goes to prison, gets let out of prison, and then just tries to impress his parents. Meanwhile, all this happening, we get 2 more murders, all of which were popular girls. Anyways, Velma finally cures her hallucinations and gets a clue about the murderer, which she tries to follow in the next 2 episodes. And even though she doesn't catch the killer, the group manages to get his phone, which helps them to find his hideout. Surprisingly, we find the fact that all the girls that were murdered are actually alive and are brains in the jars now, which is possible because Norville's grandmother turned out to be a scientist who worked for army and also developed a way to swap people's brains, and the murderer tries to follow her research. Once we find the hideout and the brains, we also somehow find Velma's mother, without any kind of reason why. Either way, everyone gets out safe, and we find out that Velma's mother has amnesia, which is cured exactly the next episode, and we find out that she believes that she is a killer. Essentially, she was hypnotized to say that she did it. Velma remembers that Norville's grandmother had a lab in the Fred's basement, so she and the rest of the gang try to get there to find the real murderer, and they actually do find them, who turns out to be Fred's mom? Yeah, you probably didn't expect it. Maybe it's because I didn't tell you about it, or maybe you're just like me. You watched the show, but still didn't expect it because, well, she wasn't a character. She was in like 2-3 scenes before like last episodes, then she randomly started appearing here and there. Anyway, she tries to kill the group, but Norval kills her first, so yippee! And that's the end of season 1. Well, that was confusing, wasn't it? So how about we actually rank this season? Because if I'm going to talk about the criticism of the show, might as well tell my honest ranking. Animation-wise, this show is perfect. Like, easily a 4 out of 5. Looks really good, hallucination scenes are probably the best part, which is ironic considering that the plot let's give it a 2. I was kind of interested in the mystery, but when I found out that it's a character that we actually had no idea about, I got kind of annoyed. And comedy gets a 1, for the number of times I've left. 1. Seeing how actually terrible this show is, this is what made me laugh. Like, how can you be this bad? But now back on the track. We have also season 2, so let's get into it. Season 2 of Velma starts with Velma and Daphne going to the party, where they find a dead body. This body belongs to the sheriff, who was a less important character in the first season. After the police arrives, we get introduced to 2 new characters, Amber and Thorn. Amber is a new character, I actually did enjoy seeing her on the screen. Then we have Thorn, who you might recognize as one of the members of Hex Girls. It was a long time ago, and now Thorn has a child. Also, she is friends with Daphne's parents. Anyways, we also get introduced to Mr. S, who used to be a biology teacher, and now he wants to come back to teaching. Velma wants to check if Fred's mom is still in her grave, because she believes she can still be a murderer, even though you saw her get impaled by a stalactite. Either way, she gets to the graveyard and gets attacked by someone. At least she gets to take their shoe to maybe find fingerprints later. The next day, in Spooner's, which is the diner I was talking about earlier, Velma finally checks the fingerprints and is ready to leave when she starts questioning her feelings for Daphne. Oh, and also, that same shoe gets ripped apart by Fred's dogs, who are actually helping him with his mystery-solving business. Essentially, he hunts ghosts. Velma asks Norville for help to follow Fred, who is a bit jumpy right now because of, you know, killing Fred's mom. Oh, and also, he is now our character with hallucinations. You know, last season it was Velma, now it's Norville. Anyway, turns out that Norville also was at the cemetery and wanted to talk to Velma, but he got scared by his hallucinations, though he was able to also get a shoe from the person who was trying to attack Velma on the cemetery. When they actually get to Fred, turns out he is at the funeral of that sheriff, where there is no body. There we also get introduced to yet another character for this season. It's the twin brother of this sheriff, and he's a bit of a nothing character, so let's not pay too much attention to him. Thanks to Amber being not too good with secrets, Daphne finds out that her moms already knew about the death 3 weeks prior, but instead of doing anything, they started their campaign to get the position of the sheriff. Also, for some reason, journals of Norville's grandmother, you know, the scientists, they are missing now. We do know that they were connected to the last murder. Maybe the killer wants something to do with them. And now let's also skip the plot like I did last season. Most things that happen is Norville gets haunted by hallucinations, Daphne and Velma keep having problems in their relationship, Amber is, well, there, and Fred slowly finds out about his mother not being a really good person. Also, this time the murder kills very specific targets. Anyways, back to the plot. In the office of Mr. S, Norville finds out about his grandmother possibly being alive still, so he tries to investigate and Daphne goes with him. Turns out they were right, she is still alive, and her technique of removing brains is still up and running. Together with her, our group finds out about the fact that project that Norville's grandma worked at with the military is apparently working again. This time, however, another person was in the charge, someone named Uncle Scooby. Together with military, they were able to make some kind of special agent that we'll find out about more later. Surprisingly, hallucinations of Fred's mom that Norville was seeing isn't actually hallucinations. Turns out ghosts are also canon. Either way, group gets slowly closer and closer to realizing the mystery, and the special agent attacks them to let them know to not look into this mystery. And the special agent turns out to be Scrappy-Doo? Scrappy tries to tell that he is actually a victim, and the military are the ones who was killing people, but we find out that he was lying, and he is actually the murderer. Though, now we need to find out who Uncle Scooby is. Turns out it was Sophie all along. You know, Velma's stepmother. Apparently she was one of the agents who happened to see Velma's mother read journals of Norville's grandmother and decided to work with the military to replicate them, and was kind of successful by creating Scrappy, though he went out of control. Scrappy finds them and starts attacking, and funnily enough, everyone survives that attack outside of Velma. And well, it's a really ironic end if this is where the show will end, and I think a lot of people will actually find it a really enjoyable ending. Either way, let's get to ranking. Animation still gets a 4. It's really good, and obviously the biggest strength of this show is, well, the hallucinations, so they had to have some character have them. Next we have the plot, and actually this time I'll give it a 3. The mystery felt more cohesive, I guess, and I was more interested in what was going to happen. And actually the murderer is someone that we have met before, and we actually knew this character. And comedy also gets a 3, because it's much better than the first season. Like, the number of meta jokes in first season was devastating, and this one had a lot more moments where I actually laughed. So overall I have to say that season 2 was much better. Then again, everyone has their own preferences, so who am I to judge? Now, let's quickly talk about the criticism I wanted to mention earlier. They're completely different here. I agree that this is a bit weird, considering that there wasn't even one situation in the entire existence of Scooby-Doo where the characters were completely different from one version to another. But it is kind of a breath of fresh air because they have something new to say, though what they have to say isn't really enjoyable. Velma in particular is probably the most criticized character, and I actually like her. She's a good bad character. You know what I mean. Like a terrible person that you just like to hate. She's terrible. She has a lot of bad habits. She criticizes everyone. Nothing that she says ever feels like not a sarcasm. Moreover, she never actually like felt to change in any way. That's why I like her. She's terrible. Another criticism is well writing. I do agree, it's not the best, and I somehow ended up liking it, but it doesn't mean that it's good in any way. So I agree with this one. And last but not the least, Thorn. Yes, she gets a whole category. Thorn is, well, a character that we already seen before. And usually when we see her, she's like a teenager. I understand the frustration. If I saw one of my favorite characters look so different, I'd also be at least annoyed. But at the same time, you do know the context that she's a mother. You expect a character that you usually see as a teenager be the same in her like, I don't know, 40, 50 years. Frustration is understandable, but if you have the context, you can understand the design choices. At least I don't see really a problem here. Now let's conclude this video. Velma is a show, and it's not a show for everyone. I somehow enjoyed it, and I think there's no other person who enjoyed it like I did. And I know that a lot of people will probably see this video and click on it because, well, no way this person actually liked the Velma. And I actually did, so I didn't click back to you. So I feel like we can all agree that Velma is a bad show. It's a bad show, but I like it. Anyways, thanks for watching and hearing me out. So, see you soon, I guess.